Hello, everybody. Willie Mayette, creator of JAZZEDGE. Welcome to the Confident Improviser Podcast. This is episode number 24, and today I got a special treat for you guys. I got an interview with the band. I got my friend Tom Casale and Randy Cloutier, who are going to be answering some questions, and we're just going to be rapping for a little bit today, so hopefully you'll learn a few things. Remember, this podcast goes along with the Confident Improviser course that's found back at JAZZEDGE. There will be a video replay of this as well for my JAZZEDGE members. If you want any more information on that, just go back to jazzedge.com or theconfidentimproviser.com as well. And so let us start interviewing the band here. So first of all, I want to welcome you, Tom, and I want to welcome you, Randy. So. All right, so Tom, Randy, and I just did a gig a couple of weeks ago that students have been talking about and asking me questions about, and I just wanted to kind of talk about that a little bit, and I also wanted to finish up with some questions that I got from students as well. So first of all, for those of you who haven't seen the concert, you can go right to jazzedge.com/concert, and you can see that concert from the Parlor in Providence, Rhode Island. It was on March 20th, I believe, is when we did that. And it was a Chick Corea celebration. Unfortunately, if you did hear the sad news, Chick Corea passed away a few months back, and this was a celebration gig for the music of Chick, which is absolutely gorgeous, beautiful, and challenging music. And we're going to talk about that a little bit today. So, Tom, you called me, literally it was, like 3 weeks before the gig, right?
Yeah, I think that's about it. I mean, Chick only died February 9th, I believe it was. So There wasn't a lot of time between it. I was like, I got a call to do a gig, and they asked me to kind of do whatever I wanted. I do a lot of original stuff too, so they asked me to do kind of whatever I wanted. I thought to do a Chick Corea thing, and I put you guys together in very short order, and we did it.
Yeah, and students have been asking, like, how did we do it? And they were kind of blown away at. I don't want to hurt myself patting myself on the back here, right? But I've heard from students that they were kind of blown away at how good the gig sounded based on the fact that we literally only had 3 weeks of rehearsals. So I wanted to kind of talk a little bit about that and talk about our process, and like I said, also get onto some of those questions from students as well. But to kind of set the stage here, so Tom gave me a call mid-February, and we had 3 weeks before we were going to do this gig, and we met every Tuesday for 3 Tuesdays, right? So we had literally 3 rehearsals, and Tom had an idea of the music, that we were going to play, and then we got together and kind of worked through and played through the music in that first rehearsal, and then started to suss out which tunes we wanted to do and which tunes we didn't want to do. And one question that I have, and I'll start first, all right, to kind of set the stage for you guys, of what we did to prepare for this gig. So one thing that I did to prepare for this gig is on my phone, I put together a playlist of the tunes that we were going to play, right? Because obviously listening to the music and getting that frame of reference was extremely important. And then also I hadn't actually, to be honest with you, hadn't listened to Chick's music in several years. I'm like kind of listening to other musicians right now. So it's a great deep dive back into Chick's music. And again, a wonderful, just seeing just how musical and technically proficient this guy is. And it's like, geez, how am I going to live up to, this standard of being able to play Chick's music? So listening to that music was super important. Obviously, practicing it every chance that I got as well, super, super important. And then I also knew that I was going to be playing on a keyboard, so I also started to kind of get that in my mind as well, because we did our first rehearsal on a piano, the second rehearsal we did on the piano as well, but the third rehearsal I did on the keyboard because I had to make sure that I kind of got back into that technique. And not really gigging over this past year with the pandemic, I hadn't really played that particular keyboard in a while, so I had to make sure that I was really kind of, ready to go on that instrument. Randy, for you, what did you do to get prepared for the gig?
Well, yes, getting prepared was it was a challenge. Just finding recordings, lead sheets to begin with, because I like to listen to melodies and I like to try to, be able to memorize them at all possibilities. But as you know, some of the music, Chick's music, the forms are really somewhat challenging at times.
Yep.
The roadmap, the musical roadmaps, and just really, listening and then looking at the sheet of music, which is a melody part, and it's not drum music, so it's interpreting, learning how to interpret what I'm seeing and listening to.
It's so important what you're saying there too, because I think especially for a young drummer or an up-and-coming drummer or up-and-coming musician, it's real easy to think, I play drums. All I got to do is just get down to form. What do I care about melody? I play bass. All I need to do is play the roots of the chord or whatever. Why do I really care about the melody? But it really is important, isn't it?
Absolutely. I mean, I really listen to the harmony because that might affect how I approach something or play something, especially in terms of dynamics. There's a lot of ups and downs that go through a tune, and especially with his music, Chick's music, there's a lot of that where, dynamics are a really important part of the music. And so to be able to hear that harmony and it just gets me thinking, away from more like drumistic stuff. I try to think more on a melodic and harmonic sense of playing. I know, like bass and piano, you have to know melody and chords, and most drummers are like, what's that? And it's really the more can know about that, I think you really get into the music more as well. So I think, learning, on top of being proficient at drums, you have to try to have an idea what the music is about and understand it. I think is helpful, especially in terms of soloing, not just playing a groove or something, but like really, I try to utilize those elements in my playing,
So the melody definitely helps you when you're, like those moments where we gave you solo time, the melody is definitely guiding you?
Not always, but most of the times, yes. So that I try to base my improvisation over the song that I'm playing. I'm really thinking about that song. I'm not just thinking about, what lick can I throw in here? I'm thinking about that song. And so it has more of a relation to that song. It's not just like how many notes can I throw into this little measure, whatever. It's like, every song to me is, I try to think in those terms of improvisation. I try to relate it to the song that I'm playing.
Yeah.
A piano player or a bass player, you wouldn't just play any notes. You kind of have to. I mean, you can play any notes, but I mean, you're really paying attention to the form and, of course, the harmony, the chord changes. So, I try to somehow make that happen in my playing as well.
So, I have an unfortunate thing to say. I didn't record your video while doing that. Okay? So I'm going to have to edit that. But let's keep going, right? Because what I'll do is I'll just bring that video in afterwards, okay? So, so Tom, same question to you. What did you do to prepare for the gig?
Yeah, I mean, you guys you stole some of the goodies. I mean, what you guys have to say is right on. I mean, I think I think we all sort of think along the same wavelengths. about how to approach the music. I made a playlist, of all the tunes so I could listen to it. So I go for walks with my dog. I'm listening to the music. I played along with those songs. So sometimes I would just put it on. And, actually one of the things I was actually reading through one of Chick's just put out a book actually recently before he passed. And it's pretty interesting. And it suggests some different ideas about how he approaches things. And one of the things I kind of, caught in there that I do sometimes, but maybe not as much as just, like not try to necessarily transcribe everything, because especially with this, we didn't have enough time to like go through and transcribe everything. But, just to play along with stuff and try to catch the shape of the music. And that's something that both of you guys, I think, are talking about too, is trying to kind of echo some of the shape, even if you're not catching every single line per se or every single note while you're playing along with it, really trying to internalize the different kinds of shapes and the way that the music is moving. So that was definitely a big piece of it. I mean, I tend to bop back and forth. I'm not even remotely as proficient a piano player as Willie. I will not even, joke about it necessarily, but, or maybe I will only joke about it. But
well, thanks, Tom. I'm not as proficient of a bass player as you.
I'll sit, so. Kind of like Randy said, like I'll sit down at a piano to kind of go through the changes, to hear the harmonies, to go through the melodies. But I might even improvise a bit on it. And then, I'll bring that back and, go back to the bass. So I kind of go back and forth across the room over here on my piano on that side, my bass on this side. And then I'll play all those melodies on the bass and, some very challenging chords to improvise over. So sometimes it's isolating certain chord sections and saying, like, how do we make the connections between these two chords rather than how do we play through this whole song?
Right.
Because there are certain changes where you're like, oh my God, he's going to go from, this specific chord to that one. And how do I get there? And how do I hear where to get, how do I hear the direction of that? And they lead you certain ways too. You could hear it in Chick's playing too, how he sort of deals with those spots in his own playing, as well as the other musicians he plays with. I mean, listening to guys like Eddie Gomez and John Patitucci, the bass players that he played with, and listening to their lines and be like, okay, well, that's how they deal with those things.
Yeah, it's Chick's music. I mean, I noticed in the tunes that we were doing are definitely, sometimes it's like, wow, you just don't think that the music is going to move the way that it does. It's really quite interesting, the movement that he gets in his music. And then when you're trying to build a solo over it, exactly right. I mean, you could solo over each chord, but then it sounds like you're just soloing in a silo, right? You're trying to build this line so that it moves in between the harmonies. So that was definitely a challenge. I'm curious, Randy, these songs had some very different articulation to them as well, right? So like you take Armando's Rumba, Spain, versus like when we did Waltz for Dave or something. So like, how does that articulation of what Tom and I are doing, how does that start to affect how you're interpreting the music?
Whoa, okay. Of course, I'm listening very intently to what you're both are playing, because again, you have the melody and the harmony going, and I'm there for more rhythmic accompaniment, hopefully not to get in the way of the melody or overpower what you're doing. So of course listening is probably number one. And then making for, let's say, for Armando's Rumba. Now that the recording that I listened to didn't have drums on it. So I used what I was hearing from the recording, and then in making up my own kind of groove, it was more of a sango kind of groove is what I ended up playing. And I thought it worked in relation to what we were playing.
Do me a favor, just for a quick second, if you could let our listeners know. So what is a sango?
It's a Latin groove. I would play it on my drums here. It would be a lot easier to play it, but it's basically you have this consistent pattern of like a bell, like just a quarter note pattern, really, and then you have.
Do you want to play it for us, quick? Can you? Are you set up to do that?
I am, but I could do it.
All right. Well, I'll move to Tom for the next question. If you want to go ahead and play that would be cool. I'm sure they would love to hear it. But actually, we'll finish up what you were saying about the articulation and the music and how you're interpreting that.
Right. So, as far as the articulation, I try to think of short and long tones. What's a short sound? How do I make that on the drums? And how do I make a long tone?
Oh, interesting. Okay.
That's really how I try to at least match what's happening that way rhythmically. So if you have a staccato note, I try to play more staccato. If you have a long tone, or if there's a held out chord, I'm probably going to hit a bass drum and cymbal crash or something, or something to accentuate.
Something that's going to sustain.
Right, to sustain. So I usually think of my notes as far as articulations is long and short.
Okay.
But also some are also accented, or maybe have more emphasis.
Yeah, it's interesting because I mean I've thought about drums like the typical drums being percussive as accenting, but never really thinking. I never put a lot of thought into the fact that long and short. I mean, obviously, like a cymbal crash is going to be long, and a snare drum hit, short. So That's interesting. Now, for both of you, same question will go to both of you. Randy, since I'm with you, we'll start with you first. Yeah. You both play multiple instruments. Why?
And
actually, if you don't mind saying what instruments you play as well, even if you're just dabbling with it.
All right, so you could probably see it right here. This is a vibraphone. So I have a vibraphone here. I just took out my steel pan, which I haven't played in a bit, but I have that. So I do play all percussion instruments. Right now, this desk here is actually my timpani drums. I have tubular chimes. I just started playing the upright bass recently, so I just starting to getting that. So,
do you play any piano?
What's that?
Do you play any piano?
Badly, but not very good. I can play a little bit.
Now, I haven't prepped you on this question at all. You didn't even know I was going to ask this question. I tell my students why musicians play piano, so I'm not going to lead you on it. Why do you play piano?
Well, it's the easiest thing as far as picking out melodies. Like for me, before I had this instrument, I had to reference the piano, especially when I was in college. Especially, I had to, take some theory courses.
So before you had the vibes, you had a reference. Yeah. Okay.
So I had, if I needed to learn a melody, the easiest way was to go to a piano and, fumble my way through it. And, maybe my technique wasn't there, but I, slowly would figure out what notes, be able to read the staff. And, At the beginning, I mean, it was really a challenge to, play because I didn't really have that. I had more of just a drumming background, drum set. And then eventually I got into theory later.
Yeah.
And then, piano is, probably the, one of the first melodic instruments I've probably played, even as a little kid. We had this old little organ in the house. It was, something I would mess around with, but drums took over. But I still appreciate piano and the keyboard instruments. And I thought this instrument, the vibraphone, because it's more, I guess, in the terms of using like my hands as, mallets.
Yeah.
Or instead of this, I don't have good facility on a keyboard. So
the mallets are probably a little bit easier.
It was transitioning was probably learning to hit these notes as opposed to having to play like 10 notes. Was a a challenge for me. So, but to learn any melodic instrument, especially drummers. I mean, because I know it's a downfall for us, to be able to understand that part of music. Some people just get into the mindset of, I just want to play drums and that's it. That's great, but I think once I got exposed to those other instruments, it really opened up my ears, and that's to me is I can hear things in music where things might be going, harmonically, and it forces me to play differently,
And bingo, you just hit it, man. Like what I tell my students is that the reason that, actually, I'm not going to say it because I'm going to I'm going to go to Tom now. Same question to you, Tom. So what instruments do you play? And I already know that you play piano, so you can go ahead and add why you play piano. Go ahead, Tom.
All right, yeah, I'll start there for you. So I mean, I think you'll probably remember, Louis. I don't remember if it was like Oscar Peterson or somebody said something like, when you play the piano, maybe it was Duke Ellington, you got the whole orchestra under your fingers, And I think one of the things that is just so cool about the piano is it's got this, great layout for trying to understand theoretical things, but also understanding multi-voices, right? Because you can, on the bass, generally you're playing mostly one note at a time. And the piano allows you to play, 10 notes at a time, basically. So you've got this ability to play multiple voices simultaneously. I mean, I got into it because I was trying to write my own music. And in writing my own music, really, that's kind of how I learned to do a lot of my piano playing. I mean, I had a lot of theoretical knowledge from school, and I did take some piano classes at school. But then I kind of used that basic knowledge, and I wanted to write songs. And so to figure them out required me to learn certain things, and it just sort of one thing led to another. And it helped me just in a great deal, as Randy said, with understanding harmonic structure, like what are these chords? How do they go to each other? What are the relationships between these chords? How does the melodies fit into there? And it's hard to see those things when you're playing on a drum or when you're playing on a bass.
Right.
So
now you also play guitar as well, right?
What's that?
You also play guitar as well.
So I started out as a guitar player. Guitar was my first instrument. Then I played electric bass, and then I played upright bass. In the middle there, I started to pick up piano a little bit, and then eventually, I actually run a band program. So I play a lot of instruments. I mean, I play sax, clarinet, flute, trumpet, trombone, violin, cello. I don't know. I probably missed a couple. Drums. Because I'm teaching kids how to play those instruments, so I have to be proficient on all of them. I mean, I don't know that I could gig on all of them. Certainly couldn't play Chick Corea's music on all of them.
I want to hear Spain or Armando's Rumba on cello, if you don't mind.
Right. I might be able to hang on cello. We did a thing. Randy will remember. We did a thing a couple of years ago. What was the tune we did? It was one of Oscar Pettiford's tunes. Bohemian, A Night in Bohemia. I'm forgetting the name of the tune right now. But we did this, and I played cello on it, And I will say I can play a cello the regular way, but I tune my cello like a bass.
Oh, funny, yeah.
So you could tune it. The traditional cello is tuned in fifths. I have special strings that allow me to tune my cello in fourths.
Oh, cool.
So it makes transitioning a lot faster.
So the layout
on
the fingerboard is the same?
It's just smaller. It's like the distance between notes is closer. So intonation, playing in tune is a challenge. But once you start to get comfortable, you just got to feel the notes and where they are. And then it, like you said, it's basically the notes are in the same places rather than the traditional cello tuning in fifths. The notes are in completely different places.
Well, you guys got me beat. I play piano, and I play, keyboard instruments. I could play some electric bass as well. I could probably gig on electric bass.
Yeah, but we've all heard you play piano, so we know how good you are.
That's really my focus.
How about having you beat, man?
But you guys are like the musicians that everybody loves to hate because, I play cello, flute, sax, marimba. I play the Balinese flute, yeah. And now, Randy, playing the pans there, that's a challenging instrument, huh?
Yes, especially with the layout of the notes are.
And again, for those of you who don't know, pans are the steel drums. That's another word for it. So go ahead, Randy.
This is what the diagram of the notes look like.
Oh, geez.
So there's, and this is just one version of a pan. A lot of pans are different. So the notes are, they're not numbered either. So you memorize the pan. They're in fifths. They go up in fifths. So the low note is a C. I can't play it. Then the next note is a G. Then it's a D, lower, then A. So it goes all the way around.
So if you have a tune that's the melody is just a circle of fifths, bam, you're golden, right?
I know. Keep going around.
Yeah, just go right around the pan. Yeah. I've heard that instrument is pretty challenging. It's actually an instrument that I want to actually get into myself. It sounds, it's such a great sound.
You'd probably tear it up. I mean, you'd probably be really good at it.
Well, thanks.
Do it, man. Do it.
I got to dig into that one. It's going to be Pans with Willie. All right. So, hey, let me ask some of these questions here. So Michelle asked Randy, and Michelle was at the JAZZEDGE live event, and Randy had a chance to accompany Michelle. That one had Brian Rizzuto on bass. We didn't have you on that, Tom. Sorry, but
Brian's great.
Brian,
I'm sure he did a great job.
Oh yeah, he did. It was great. So anyway, Michelle asked, was Randy playing with his Swiss cymbal?
Actually, yes. Good observation. That was the cymbal on my right. That was my and the hi-hats were also Swiss. They were Paiste.
Oh, nice.
Paiste cymbals. My ride on my right and my hi-hat, and then I had some other cymbals in there, Zildjian and I forget the other name.
Cool. Well, just as a reminder, if anyone wants to watch that concert again, just go back to jazzedge.com/concert, and you can watch it there. Here's a question for you, Tom. Tom Casali said that you all three participated to create the list of songs played. Would it be possible to develop a bit? So expand on that a bit. The tune selection, Tom.
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, we started with, basically a bigger list. I mean, generally speaking, I kind of went through it. I think initially I reached out to both of the guys and said, are there any tunes you guys really, really want to play? Are there, and then let's work from there, basically. And I kind of wind up cobbling together, I think, the first list technically, and it had way more tunes than we probably needed at that point. The book had more tunes than we needed in it. And then it was just kind of a matter of, I was trying to look at things somewhat chronologically. So I wanted to kind of give a little bit of the story of how he progressed through his life and sort of some of the albums and things that came out to give people an opportunity to kind of hear about oh, that came from this album, or, oh, that was from this period of time. That was, Chicken 1968 and this was Chicken 2020. So, and then again, like I said, we kind of, as we, rehearsed, we talked through certain tunes that we felt oh, that one's really good, or, that one could wait, or we really should include this, but we need to balance out because we wanted to keep it, a certain amount of time. So, there's other things we could have played, but didn't necessarily want to, have it be too long. Also, there were other things bring up Gotta Match, where Gotta Match is this great song that we could have worked on, but it was a very difficult and challenging song. we definitely could have done it. We're, capable of doing it, but it would have taken more time. So, sometimes you got to say, okay, well, that's going to take more time to get that one down. Let's focus on making sure we can do well the things that we're doing well. And I think that can kind of apply to people's practice too. When you think about, your own study, there's times where you kind of just say like, okay, like that's something that I might be able to do, but it's going to, take me more time. I'll wait on that for now and come back to it and focus on these things. So it's definitely something that I think if we did it again, I would love to add Gotta Match, because it's a really fun tune, but it's also incredibly fast and funny, incredibly demanding.
I was just talking about that with my coaching group today and talking about what I realized on that is like this like hitting your pinky there, like just by changing around the fingering that you're doing. By using fourth finger there is much more powerful than using the pinky because going 5, 4, 3 is weaker in the hand, but using 4, 3, 2 is a little bit stronger. So it's like, it's stuff like that where, it takes time to kind of work it through and start to pick apart the tune at not just a musical level, but then also at a technical level as well. One thing I said to you, Tom, over our group chat, but I want to say in this podcast as well, is just what a fantastic job that you did, of course playing, but then also all of the interlude talking. It was just really well planned out, and I give you a lot of credit for that. And for anyone that, I would definitely suggest take a listen to that concert because Tom laid out just some great Chick history, right? Like if you want to know some great history about Chick Corea and where these tunes are from, it was really good. It was fantastic. Now,
Thanks.
On the difficult tunes, like Humpty Dumpty, there's an example. At first, it was like, I don't know if we're going to be able to do that one, right? So I had to like really roll up my sleeves and really practice that one a bunch. But we were able to get that one together. And to kind of dovetail on what you're saying there, Tom, it's like, our job, I believe that our job as professional musicians is to do justice to music, right? I feel it sounds corny, but I feel like not just in my lessons, but in my playing, my job is to bring art and beauty to the world through music, all right? And in order to do that means I can't be clamming all over the place on a music, and certainly on a celebration gig for somebody who just passed. The last thing you want to be doing is like butchering their music. So it's always weighing out that like what can we get done, but is it a stretch and is it too much of a stretch? And I think the thing that I want to say for the three of us is that that you have to be brave to go for that stretch. On that first rehearsal, some of the tunes were like, no, we're going to be able to get this together. So then each of us do our job. We each go back, we put in the time in the woodshed, right, making sure that we're practicing this stuff. And we get back together, we rehearse it again, all right, take notes, go back again. But it's really, the three of us have to come together and we have to say, hey, look, we're willing to take that reach together. So, and that's, the fact that we're professionals and we've worked together before. Now, some people are also going to wonder, how much have we worked together before? Randy and I and Tom and I have played a lot over the years. I've known you, Tom, for like, what, like 8 years, 10 years? Randy,
yeah, probably 10.
Like somewhere around the same, like about 8 to 10 years as well. We've done dozens of gigs and different permutations. I don't remember. Have we? Oh yeah, we've done the three of us, but probably at DeWolf, right? I think we probably did some of those gigs.
That sounds right. Yeah.
But certainly not this music, right? This music was kind of a new thing for the three of us. Now, another question here. Would Tom say a little bit more about the use of the bow? It gives such a different style than the usual finger bass playing.
Sure. Yeah. So I was largely classically trained first, although I did always dabble in jazz. My technical training kind of came in classical music as a classical bass player, and I actually kind of put that aside for a while. I'm kind of just getting back to it now. And it does. It has like a really beautiful sound that's much different than the pizzicato sound that we're sort of used to in most jazz. I mean, there's definitely a tradition of it in jazz. There's some incredible, jazz bass players who bow: Paul Chambers, Major Holly, Christian McBride, who happens to be on some of the Korea stuff. Also, there's in Spain starts off with bowing, so that was actually technically there. I didn't come up with the idea or anything. I can't take credit for that. But doing Crystal Silence with a bow, I was listening to a recording, and I want to say it was probably Joe Farrell playing sax. I'm not sure about which sax player it was. I think it was Joe Farrell though. And he was playing sax, and I thought, that sounded really nice with a bow, just because of how melodic it was and what he was getting out of the saxophone. And it was actually just saxophone and piano. And so I thought, it would be really cool if we do that with, bowed bass and piano. And then, of course, we added drums to it, too, to add, color. And that's that kind of arranging piece where we can take some liberties with Chick's music and sort of say, like, okay, well, this is how he arranged it. Well, we can do it a little bit different. We don't have to do everything the same. And that's kind of what gives the music, like, a new life, if you will, or new breath, kind of going forward. And that's one of the things I love about jazz. And somebody like Chick, who himself did that, where he took music and he was always breathing new life into it by creating a different arrangement of something. But to go back to the bow, yeah, so, I mean, generally speaking, you see it mostly in classical, but it does cross over to jazz quite well.
Yeah. I had another question I wanted to ask, and I'm drawing a blank now. Oh, you know what? Back to let's bring it back to piano for one quick second. All right. So, I remember what it was. I wanted to tell our anecdote, all right, of what happened between you and I, Tom. In between our first and second set, the fight that you and I got into. Dun, dun, dun! Oh, yeah! All right, so now we're going to get everyone listening like, well, the fight? What the heck is he talking about? All right, so...
that headlock was brutal, Willie.
I'll tell you. That first degree black belt, baby. Hey,
I knew it! I should have known better!
So something that I've done many times over the years is, especially with bass players, is asking bass players if what I'm providing to them in my playing is working for them. Because the thing that I've learned is, like, bass players, well, first of all, like, we have a special relationship. Bass, piano, and drums, we are like the core, the engine, right? A lot of times we are the foundation of a group. You'll throw a sax player on top, you throw a vocalist on top, or whatever. But it's really important that the three of us really lock in together quite well. And in order to do that, there has to be open communication. And it has to really be open communication without a bunch of bull hockey, right? I mean, it has to, you have to be able to speak to one another and be able to get the job done. And when you can't do that, the music definitely suffers. I know I've been in situations, I'm sure you guys have too, we could go down that whole rabbit hole of, you're on the bandstand with basically you-know-what, right? And they're very difficult to get along with, and the communication isn't there, and, well, obviously the music suffers as well. But one thing I asked Tom in one of the rehearsals when while I'm comping behind his solo, is I was asking him, like, okay, is that all right? Is it too much, too little? You want something different? And it was like, oh, yeah, okay. Tom was like, it was all fine. But then between the first set and the second set during our concert there, you came up, and do you remember what you asked me? Or told me?
I do.
Shut the heck up!
I suggested that you might leave a little bit more space.
Right.
Sorry.
Right. And then, was I taken aback by that? No.
No, you were beyond professional about it. I must admit, I always hesitate to say anything because I do feel like, I know it can be a personal thing, but you're absolutely right. And the way you dealt with it was beyond professional. And honestly, when I listen back to that first set, I'm like, I don't know, maybe it was just the way I was hearing things in that moment, because it sounds pretty darn good.
Right. But the thing is, what's really important is that when I am accompanying behind your solo or anyone's solo, Randy's solo, whatever, when we are in an accompaniment role, it's our job to accompany. And if you're not hearing something, no matter whatever it is, maybe it's on you, maybe your ears or whatever are
Agreed.
like not hearing something, it doesn't matter. If that's what you want, that's what my job is to give to you. Is to make it, because my job is to make it, to give you a bed, or at least that's the way I see my job, is to give you a bed that you can just float right over the top, and you could hear the harmony that you want to hear, or hear the space that you want to hear. But it was a great story, because I remember you came up and you're like, you're like a little nervous about saying something. And I remember telling you, like, hey man, it's totally fine. It's like, it's why I brought it up in the first place. So it's such an important lesson, that communication with the band. If you can have that communication, it just makes the music so much better. And then, we were joking around with Randy there too, right? Like, in rehearsals, like Randy can hear everything. He's like playing the drum beat, but hearing some other melody in a different key. Like, we like to bust chops and have fun.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think that it points to something too, that about comping and how there's like an art to that. Speaking specifically of not of just the piano, because it does apply to bass and drums as well. But there are different ways to approach comping too, and it's not like one way is necessarily right or wrong. We talked about how Chick, approaches comping, and Chick has a very specific way that he approaches his comping. And you can listen to Thelonious Monk or something that's totally different,
right?
So it's just it does it creates an interesting discussion about what is best for a certain situation or a certain player, and how to approach that. And I think there's a lot to be learned from that. And I, again, appreciated. I think I felt so much better in that second set. You made great adjustments. And when I listened back to that first set, I think I may have been being nitpicky or something, because I really liked what you played. But it's just one of those things.
It's my job. My job is to give you what you're looking for, right?
Well done.
I mean, when I'm in that accompaniment role. Now, when I'm soloing, well, now that's different. At that point, if I felt like you were playing too much, well, then I got to tell you then, right? All right. So last two questions to go to the both of you, and I'm going to shut up and just let you guys answer these questions. I'll give you both questions right now, and I'll let you guys jump in, whoever wants to jump in first. So the first question is, pianistically speaking, if you could point to one thing in the gigs that you've played over the years, what is it, something that you're looking for from the piano player, or would suggest that the piano player focuses on based upon your own instrument experience? So as a drummer or as a bass player, what are you looking for from the pianist, or what should the piano player really make sure they have under their belt? That's the first question. Since this podcast is the Confident Improviser, I'd also love you to share what's one improvisation tip that you could share, something you practice, some idea, something improvisation related that you would like to share. Who wants to jump in first?
Well, I guess I'll go first.
Go ahead, Randy.
All right. So in terms of what I like to hear from a piano player when I'm playing with, is that what you're trying to get?
And I'm hearing the butt of that joke being nothing. Silence. All right, go ahead. Yeah, Randy. So like if you have a piano player on a gig, all right, what is it that you're looking for? And it could be something specific. Maybe, when trading fours, like behind your solo. What are you looking for from the piano player?
Well, I mean, in terms of the playing, I mean, I really listen to the comping. I mean, that's something I try to lock in. I might, if I'm listening and I catch what maybe you're doing, I might try to kind of accentuate with you in that sense, or I might respond to that in and more maybe of a call and response. Like you might have played something and I might be like, and play something back to you, you know.
So to dive into that a little bit more, would you say that you like a pianist when comping or when, just approaching the instrument to give you some rhythmic stuff to play with? Like if they're just playing rhythmically flat, like holding out whole notes, quarter notes, not really doing any syncopation, do you find that kind of difficult to work with?
Yeah, I mean, if it's always like that, I really, syncopation is to me what makes the groove and makes the music feel like it's going somewhere. Like it's got that anticipation or suspense almost. But it's like if everything was just like quarter notes through the whole way, that kind of gets
a little old.
So, and of course, a player like yourself, I mean, it was just a blast. I mean, you had got so much going on rhythmically. It was like, there's at times I was like, getting excited what I was hearing. I'd be like, oh, I better, get back on track here. I'm also playing with him. But there's times I just want to listen and, I might just play less and just, listen to that. But it depends. It's very, I guess, reactive as part of like listening to, if I'm hearing something, I'm going to try to go there with them. And, I did listen to the recording and I was really, I was like, wow, that was pretty cool what we played, and, sometimes you might not catch that while you're playing. It's just, it happened. And it's like, I'd be like, oh, wow. Or,
And then finally, the other question, any tip you can give to budding improvisers?
Yeah. I mean, as far as, like improvising, obviously understanding rhythm has to be, I think essential. I'm not sure what you use for rhythm stuff, but the syncopation book, I don't know if you ever heard of that one. It's
It's part of my suggested books on my site.
Okay, yeah, perfect.
So I suggest the Louis Belson one, the 4/4. Yep. And then there's also the Ted Reed, the Robert Starr as well. Those are the three books that I recommend.
But those are great for even like melodic playing. Like take one of those lines and just play a scale using those rhythms. That's something I do at the on the vibraphone.
Yeah.
In addition to I have all kinds of exercises that I do for the drum set.
It's funny. That sounds exactly like I say exactly that same thing in my lessons. Take the rhythm, apply a scale to it. Absolutely. In fact, Confident Improviser students are going to love to hear that because that's exactly the way the Confident Improviser program is structured. We start with ingredients, which is like a scale. We have a rhythm, and we apply that scale to the rhythm, and we create licks and exercises. So that's good to hear. What about you, Tom? What is it that you're looking for from the piano player?
I think I'm going to echo a lot of what Randy said in a moment, but I mean, I would start from a base level and just say, I think, the basic things like about, these are things again on a very basic level, form and time. I think when a piano player, I mean, these are things that you never have any issues with. But I think at a more basic level, when we look at,
everyone's going to think that I'm paying you guys to say all this nice stuff about me. I mean, I appreciate it. I like getting a little rant here. Yikes. Anyway, all right. Sorry. Go ahead, Tom.
No, but I think that that knowledge of the form of a tune, not losing the form, not losing a beat or something, keeping good time and feel with the rhythm section, I think is of the utmost importance to just to start with.
Yeah.
Then I think on another layer, a higher level, which to echo again what Randy's saying, it's for me especially, I kind of come although I don't necessarily play just like them, I kind of come out of like the Bill Evans school of bass players and bass trio, which is a very interactive approach to playing. So I want to, as Randy said, it's about like, you know, you hear a rhythm that somebody plays and you try to play off it somehow or try to echo it somehow, and then being able to like listen to each other and hear different things and be able to bounce those ideas off of each other. And I think that, you know, while keeping that strong grounding of the other things that are going on, that's what makes it the most fun, I think. You know, that's like what Randy said, like about our gig that was so fun, was that there's just moments of us just kind of bouncing off of each other and things happening that nobody ever talked about.
Right.
You know, but it's happening because we're all listening and responding to each other. And that's a special ingredient to jazz music, is in live performance in jazz, is, you know, this idea that anything can happen and you never know what's going to happen. And then things just do happen. And when certain things click, it's like cool. It almost feels magical.
Yeah.
So, you know, I think that other stuff has to come first. You know, you have to have that, you know, sense of form and tune, sense of time and feel. But then once you get by those things, the bigger picture, I think, comes in being able to react to the other players that you're playing with on some level. And sometimes you fall on your face and being somewhat okay with it. Yeah. You know, I think we did well at not falling on our face, but I think that, you know, when you're playing, you have to be okay with that, I think, on some level too, to take those chances and sort of see what happens, which kind of plays into my improvisation thing. I think I don't know if you want to ask the improv question.
Oh yeah, go ahead. That was the next question. So what's your improv tip?
So I think that, like, you know, again, I echo a lot of the things that Randy said, but one of the things that I, you know, really am kind of all about is just jump in. You know, I think, you know, start with something that is basic, but then jump in and do it. I think that, like, for me, and it's something that I'm still trying to develop and get better at, to be fair. One of the things that can hold us back is the fear of just doing, you know, and you have to start somewhere. And I know, like, I teach young kids in a middle school on jazz ensemble, for instance. And one of the things I teach them is a basic blues scale. And one of the things I tell them, because there are a lot of times they're kind of afraid to just start improvising, is, all right, listen, just play one note and just play a rhythm on that note and just see what happens. And so the band plays the blues or whatever, and the student plays that one note in rhythm in time. Okay, great. That wasn't so bad. Play two notes. Just it's jumping in and just kind of doing it. You know, beyond that, there's obviously other things that, you know, can kind of get you there. There's tricks when it comes to scales, and, you know, embellishment of melody, I think, is, you know, always know the melody. You know, Randy talked about that before, like, know the melody of the song that you're trying to play, so that when you're playing your solo, it's somewhere in the background and hopefully coming out of your playing a little bit. You know, the rhythmic qualities of scales and all that kind of stuff definitely applies as well. But I really do just think a lot of it is just about jumping in.
I love it. And with that, we are going to end right there. Jump in, dive in, both feet in. Can't agree with you more. So I want to thank you guys so much. Thank you, Randy. Thank you, Tom, for joining me today. Just as a reminder, if anyone wants to check out that concert, just go back to jazzedge.com/concert. Randy, Tom, and I do have plans to be doing some more playing together, and we're kind of, you know, everything's under wraps right now. We're kind of working some of that out, but we will definitely keep all of you in the loop and informed of when we're going to be doing this again, so that you can check out the live stream as well. So anyway, I am Willie Mayette, creator of Jazz Edge. Thank you guys so much for joining me, and I will catch you guys in the next podcast episode.